Flat Earth Debate live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Excuse me. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a Ko-Fi, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by my light switch so I can actually see my screens. Eli, Neil, Refracted Curvature, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, good
Hey,
morning.
good afternoon.
It's been a while since we did a raft of housekeeping questions, and we get one or two at the beginning of each show, but I'm going to rattle my way through all of them today, if that's good by you guys. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth.
Negative.
Black Swan.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Gonna need a flat Earth for that.
Any evidence?
That's what it was.
Go on, whoever that was.
That's what it was that the Glover I was talking about earlier, he thought he had evidence for a molten iron core. He was bringing up rotation because of it. And just saying.
John?
I don't really know where he was going with it, but he says, you have a big hunk of molten metal. It's going to have magnetism, and that's going to cause a turn.
Because
What's the strength?
how's it proven? What's the
I'm
evidence?
not the Glover. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just rhetorically saying for the audience's benefit, when someone puts something like that to you, it's a baseless assertion. Oh, you say there's a giant unicorn in the centre of a sphere Earth. Yeah, of course, got magnetism. Can't have magnetism without unicorns. Oh, right, okay. Prove it. Well, we just know.
Yeah, because it's stationary, Nathan.
Hold on a second.
You know?
When you measure the magnetic field of Earth, you have to level the compass. That means that our magnetic field is with respect to a flat plane.
Oh dear.
Not a
Nice.
Not again.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Let me hear you turn that until you're gonna need a flat plane.
You will. You will need a flat plane for
Well,
gravity. Go on, John. You told me this,
Yeah.
so you go ahead.
Right. Newton asserts a downward force causing weight. Down is respect to a horizontal plane. All of his mathematics for that force are done with respect to an inertial plane.
You will need a flat Earth for gravity, Neil.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's a convoluted description of something that doesn't happen, but that convoluted description still incorporates a flat plane. Earth is flat. If you were unaware that this, you're a member of the audience that hasn't been here before, this might come as quite a shock. Earth's measured flat. The globe religion's been born out of that measurement. And there are no exceptions in terms of which globe proof you use and its origins in a flat Earth measurement. There is no exception. They all use a flat Earth because Earth is measured flat. That's how it's dealt with. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, like the Earth curve calculator doesn't actually calculate for surface level curving. It uses surface level as a horizontal plane and eye level as a plane parallel to it. So, yeah, the Earth curve calculator has a flat Earth in it.
Yep. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics? We've already covered the core, so I won't ask that one. Any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
Not from.
Who's not going to be much use if you're making a measurement? Reification of angles to curves in models isn't a measurement of the plane that we're dwelling atop when we need to navigate or measure stars or create maps. All of those are done with respect to a flat plane. You're taking the measurement from it, not to it.
Right. You would think that they would realize it's with respect to the ground when you use a word like elevation to, specify what kind of angle it will be.
Elevation is from level. It's in the word.
Yeah, that's correct. Spot on.
So if you're taking an elevation angle,
It's with respect to a flat baseline. That's correct.
Freshly grown flowers, you want to ask you a question right now instead of main text chat? He's asking, can you measure a non-physical object? And how far is it distance to the horizon on a flat Earth?
Nobody's making a distance claim for horizon on a flat Earth. We extend a plane out by levelling our tool with it. We're measuring the ground flat and establishing a plane of reference. We're not measuring a distance to the horizon. That's the globe's claim, not ours. We establish a flat plane of reference. That means we reference it. The ground. Is he saying it's non-physical? Is the ground not physical now that we're measuring it flat? Yeah, it is. Definitely physical. We're navigating it. What do you think the maps are? They're representing Swiss cheese? No, they're representing the ground that we'll be navigating and measuring. He's saying, where's your distance to horizon? I'll give you my flat Earth distance to horizon if you can give me a single practical application for a distance to horizon measurement. Because there isn't one. The only claimant that has this as their claim is a globe believer. And it does not have a practical application. Asking me where the horizon is, for what? What are you going to do with that information? Other than affirm your globe belief, there is no practical use for it.
I would just like to point out that to measure is to know. And within the Earth curve calculator, it demonstrates that they measure the Earth flat to believe it's a sphere.
Yeah, besides, the horizon in that maths is denied by anti-flat earthers, aka ex-globe believers who still believe they believe when they don't, and challenge flat earthers as a result of their lack of faith in their globe belief. Yeah, you deny that that's a horizon. It might be marked with an X and labelled horizon in the maths, but it's below surface level. There aren't horizons below surface level. Furthermore, as John just pointed out, the maths for you to assert that you've got a horizon that's physical is denied as a result of the black swan, only exists in maths, and requires a flat earth to measure to infer it. So again, just to round that out, why am I being asked what the horizon's got a measurement for? It's a globe claim, not mine. Burden of proof reversal fallacy from fresh grown flowers. From the chat.
Yeah, I don't even know what he means, man. He said, can you measure a non-physical object?
Well, like Earth
Freshly
curve.
flowers.
Well, like Earth
Speak up,
curve.
please.
He's asking us if we can measure Earth curve, a non-physical object. No, we can't. But that kind of shatters your Earth curve belief. Unless you've, in a deluded way, believed that you had a gotcha with a burden of proof reversal fallacy for our horizon we don't measure. No, we establish a tool as being horizontal. We level a tool with the horizon and then extend a reference plane to the ground position of the star. That's the position on the ground. Is that not physical? Because that's what we're doing. What's that? You wanted a horizon to get in the way of boats and buildings and stuff until we debunked it. Now it's non-physical. For you. What a shame. That's very much like your failure of a globe model is being projected onto us like it's our failure. It isn't.
He also has a follow-up question. Let me read it.
He's in the voice chat.
Is a reference a measurement? Question mark. Yes, it is. It's referencing
part
the
of the
Earth,
measurement.
horizontal
It
plane.
can be the measurement itself.
We're measuring an angle.
The
Part of
reference,
the... Go on, John. I'm taking your thunder. Go ahead.
the reference is part of the measurement. Now, it isn't necessarily the measurement, but it is the reference. If you measure a zero difference from the reference, you just measured your reference. It is part of the measurement.
We entertaining chat skanks today?
He's in VC. I don't understand why you're reading his messages. He's in VC.
Harry,
Well, we're not quite done with housekeeping. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius? Okay, that's pretty much it. Unless I missed one. I don't think I did. Did I do all of them? I think I did. Let me know from the chat if I missed one. Got a video to cover. Jim Bauer's Bruniverse. Good title of a show.
Jim Breuer.
I love it.
It's Jim Breuer.
Jim Breuer.
Yeah, he was. He played on the 1990s movie Half Baked, Dave Chappelle. Stoner
1990s
movie.
what?
Half Baked.
Never heard of it.
It's a funny comedy stoner movie. Oh man, you got to watch it. It's pretty funny.
Okay. You're a
It's
stoner.
excellent.
You're a Cheech and Chong fan or something.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, new age.
Bloody hippie. Get out. Right, I've sent a link to the live
Right.
stream chat. So if you're watching this live, which you can only be watching if you're watching it right this second, there's a link to this videographer's channel. Please let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, and let him know that we've covered his video. It's an interview with Mark Sargent by the looks of things. Don't exactly know what to expect, but as is always the case, we're going into these things blind. Hopefully I'll give the audience enough time to actually go and leave a comment right now that says at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me in the nicest possible way, so you don't get your comment immediately removed. The idea being that were he to respond, whoever's coming off and on mute while I'm obviously in the middle of the sentence, please can you stop doing that? The idea being that if he were to respond, that is to say make a response video to what we've covered here today, he'd put a link to our video in it. That's the whole idea of this, so we get some YouTube algorithmic love where we don't get from YouTube themselves. Like I say, go and click on that link. I don't know how many people are currently watching because we haven't been live for very long. Hopefully there's enough of you. 70 people, that's not so bad. Yeah, please let him know. Who is it that kept on coming off their mute button? Go ahead.
No, it was me, Nathan. I'm cleaning, and for some reason, my AirPods, they were like muting and unmuting. I don't know how, but I was like, holy shit, you're talking to me. But then I changed it.
Don't worry.
But sorry about that.
That's okay. We'll get into the video.
That happens to me.
Okay, let's have a 5-minute
it's kinda
discussion
weird.
about it. I would.
If people are ready for the big sit down, we 100% are. I don't think we were 4 years ago. Talk about warp speed, Project Warp Speed. You know, like we are now ready.
None of that made any sense to me. I have no idea. As a hook, right? I often put the best bit of my video right at the beginning, just so to hook the people into the rest of the video.
Mikey Mike, dude, good to see you. Oh, listen, with all conversations, you have to open your
Sunglasses still dawn. STD.
mind. You can't be held, you can't hold on to a tree.
Hello.
Yeah, it's my bad, Nathan. I was just gonna say real quick. The interview starts off kind of slow, but it's a really good interview, though. Like overall, I would say, just my opinion, but I'll have fun listening to it again. It was really good.
Oh, put the sunglasses back on, mate.
Circles are larger than the other.
Get some sleep or put the sunglasses back on.
This guy's crazy. And he goes, look at it real hard. I know a lot of you think it may immediately look like they're the same, and that's what your instinct tells you. But I'm telling you, one of them is larger. Now we're gonna and voted the bunker.
Ah, thank you, bro. What's going on?
I'm excited about today. I don't know if you want to sneak.
Hat and a meth.
He wants to
Right.
make it where we can black out the sun so we can all be saved. Look it up. It's not a conspiracy. That is a fact. You don't think whack jobs? This is Avengers. You're
Yes.
living.
Where do you reckon it starts kicking off? I'm already 10 minutes in.
Right?
That was Long Island. Please use mass transit during the eclipse. For what?
I just
items like snacks, drinks, cash, cell phone chargers, and blankets. Motorists should top off their fuel tank or fully charge their electric vehicle before heading out. So they were prepping people for nothing.
Be afraid, be very afraid, you know. So in a way, I feel like it kind of cured me of buying the fear porn, you know. There's, you know, like my daughter, ever since she was little, I said there's nothing to be afraid of ever. Be smart, you know, be
What kind of terrible advice is that? There's nothing to be afraid of. Mind that bus, what bus? Splat.
aware, but you don't have to be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid of that bus. You'll be perfectly fine.
You know?
I teach my kids, be afraid. There's plenty of things that can kill you. Don't hold your bags on the stairs. You might slip and break your legs. There's plenty to be afraid of. One of our base instincts. Sorry, I know this isn't flat Earth related. Go on, whoever that is, and I'll stop Discord making a whole load of noise while you're chit-chatting.
I was just trying to figure out what is this about? It sounds like two crazy people jabbering back and forth. Like, is this?
Yeah, so they're setting it up, and they're like trying to talk about all the different like kind of weird conspiracies and stuff, and like the way there's like so much fear in a lot of stuff that the government does, and this and that. And then that's when he goes, now I'm going to get to my favorite, like one of his favorite conspiracies, and he goes into flat Earth. And then but it's a really good conversation. I'll mute myself.
Go on, we lost you.
The flat Earth isn't a conspiracy, though.
No, I know, but he's speaking from the eyes of the globe world, right? Like they look at it as a conspiracy, but then he's like, for sure, like they bring up a lot of good points, and like he's like totally on board with it not being a globe, and like he's like, this is big. Like he was like, I'm surprised he even talked about it, to be honest. A lot of them are coming out the woodworks though. I was gonna say, Nathan, you should hit him up and get on there too and be interviewed with him, because he's looking for people to talk about it with. That's why he got Mark Sargent. But he says in the interview, you hear him, he says how he wants to get people to talk about it.
Nathan Oakley 1980 at AOL.com if he wants to drop me a line if he ends up listening to this, because my audience has gracefully gone and told him we're covering his video. So if he hears your call to action, maybe he'll drop me a line. Who knows?
With that said, I want you to understand, as you're listening, as you're watching. I know it's a little hard to think that things aren't what they seem, but they're really not. And the minute you start exploring, so I want to bring on Mark Sargent to join us today in the bunker. What's up, Mark? Sorry, I caught you while you were
no, it's don't.
sipping coffee. How are you, bro?
I'm good, and thank you so much for having me on the bunker. I'm very excited. This is great.
No, I'm.
Turn your gain down, Mark. Way too loud. You're distorting.
I love it. This is a subject where I won't get into it yet. I won't get into it yet. But the amount of people that try to poo-poo this is mind-boggling. And I was 100. I want everyone to know. I was 100%. This is stupid. This is the dumbest thing I ever heard. What's wrong with these human beings? And now it makes all the sense in the world. And I have no problem saying that. I want the world to know. The scientists have proved that they lie. Who's getting another shot?
That's right.
It's true.
Who didn't take ivermectin because it didn't work? They lied. So I don't want to hear you learn from a scientist.
Right.
So
he doesn't know what science is.
Correct. He doesn't know what science is. No. So when you say science lied, science is a method. It doesn't have the ability to lie. It's not got lips. Yeah? Men lie. Men claim to have science. That doesn't mean that science or scientists have lied. To be a scientist, you're somebody that's either coming up with a hypothesis or varying and manipulating that which has been come up with by someone else as a supposed cause to see if it causes the effect or not. And if it does cause the effect, you validate your hypothesis. If it doesn't cause the effect, you validate your hypothesis in the alternative or null. So science only has empirical outcomes attached to it if the methodology has been adhered to correctly. Now, when men say, I've got science, check out my statistics, check out my group studies, check out my peer-reviewed paper, that isn't science. They lied to you. Now you think science has lied. No, real science can't lie. It's an empirical-based methodology.
Or school.
Right.
Because it has proved none.
Like you, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the feast of nonsense. That's pushed is that science is lied to us, even though all of our technology is based on our scientific understandings. You know, like, so no, science didn't lie to you. There are certain fields out there that wanted to claim the validity of science without formulating a hypothesis and doing an experiment.
Yeah, but I can remember way before Flat Earth, my son used to say, science doesn't prove, it just disproves.
That's a stupid statement. If you disprove something, you automatically prove something. So it wasn't that then? Oh, you proved it wasn't that? Just disproves. That's a stupid statement. In reality, science has a scientific prediction, otherwise known as a hypothesis. It has two sides to it. One is called the null, otherwise known as a zero difference result. That is to say, you vary and manipulate something you think will cause an effect you're studying, and it doesn't cause it. That's a null hypothesis. If A, not B. If I vary A, B will not happen. B being the thing you're trying to get to happen. An alternative hypothesis alongside the null, zero difference result, is the antithesis of your null. That is to say, you say A will cause B. So if A, then B. B being the phenomenon you are studying, A being the presumed cause of that effect, yet to be varied. Now, one of those two outcomes, and there are only two outcomes in a scientific prediction, A causes B, or A does not cause B. Those are the only two outcomes. Somebody's off mute. Bushel. Go ahead.
Huh?
Bushel. You're hot micing.
Oh, am I hot micing? Oh,
yeah, you're talking to me, mate. What do you think?
I'm sorry.
There's only one outcome.
What's it?
Oh, bloody hell. Neil hears somebody interrupting, and every single time he takes his opportunity to pour fuel on that fire. Go ahead, Neil.
No, I'm going to wait for you to get done because I want to ask you something about the prediction.
You are. There's only one outcome from a scientific prediction. Proof. It's the only thing that can occur. Now, that's very useful to have a method that only provides proof. It either proves that wasn't the cause, or it proves it was. Either way, one of those two things will be proven. It's the only outcome. Now, liars, that's men, say, I'm a scientist. Why? Well, because I say the sky is made of cheese. Science! Oh, right. Have you put that through a predictive methodology of cause and effect reasoning? Nope. I'm a scientist. And I got my paper peer-reviewed. So it's definitely science. No. When you, the guy in this video that we're covering now, sees that somebody claiming to be a scientist has made a claim that turned out not to be true, that does not mean science lied. It means a man lied.
None of that can. It's all nonsense. All right, sorry, I'm going.
No, it's okay. And to your point, I do a section on a podcast every Tuesday called, and I've been doing it now for what, 2 years, called Lucky Unlucky.
Yeah.
Where I say, okay, if you're lucky, you caught, some sort of weird side effect that reads like a book of witches spells. And if you're unlucky, you catch suddenly, unexpectedly, short illness, brief illness, blah, 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 and then you're done. So yeah, absolutely. I'm totally with you there.
So before we get into this, if you don't mind, Mark and Jim, I saw something. Now, this guy's a flat earther. And that is definitely a name that people like to throw around.
Right.
And it's like, it's an insult. It's just another insult and a way to poo-poo people.
Sure.
I saw this video, and this is something that everyone listening and watching, you can go test it out. So here's a guy explaining to you why we believe what we believe.
Who cares? When you say you can test something, again, that fits into the genre that you've just poo-pooed. Test, in scientific vernacular, is an experiment. It's actually called a hypothesis test. The hypothesis is what I just explained. The methodology that gives you only two outcomes, A causes B or A doesn't cause B. That's a hypothesis. And to test the hypothesis is to vary that which you think will cause the effect you're studying. That's a test. Now, when you say some guy has got a test to show why we believe, I immediately shut down. I just go, no. Multiple category errors here.
And why the Earth most likely is flat.
Right.
This guy brings...
Right, I don't want to hear why someone gives me their opinion on why Earth's most likely. This isn't a probability discussion. There's not a likelihood of Earth being flat. It's measured flat. For everyone. Doesn't matter if you've got a globe belief. You still measure it flat. That's not ambiguous. That's not a balance of probability. It is certainly not my belief.
Brings up a totally different situation. He says...
To make us feel that way. We're all judged. Yeah, who prints those books? Do you know who prints those books?
So he goes on to say... Ghislaine Maxwell's father prints our books. No, wait.
No, it means that they're lying to you about what's in those books.
But he starts going on to saying cities across our whole country.
You can't send that to Mike to play?
No.
No. I think it'd be better off my phone with nobody able to hear it playing it straight down. Who recommended this?
There was a guy called Measured Flat. I really don't know who that is, but he was in the VC on Friday, and he asked me to share this.
As a videographer, this irritates me. It irks me. Why you can get away with yelling down your mic, going out of focus, holding a mic that's clearly got a mic stand, distorting it, having your guests distorted, talking about a video that no one can hear, playing it through your phone down the mic. 500,000 subscribers. No, 300,000. It just irks me. The amount of work I put in. I'll just play this video down the phone for you, ladies and gentlemen. That'll be all right, won't it?
No, and you know what?
By the way, you're watching a video. This is how would this guy feel if I played his video, this video, down my phone?
And it's the raw. So in this, he said, "Here it is. This is the one I wanted."
Try to get into question or say something
was
real
destroyed
quick.
by fire between 1850.
Did you hear what he said? He said,
Every major city in North America was destroyed by fire between 1850 and the early 1900s.
What the bloody hell is this? I'm going to spin past all this because this is just garbage.
Nathan.
Yes.
Did that, Jeff?
What?
Can you take note of the last 10 minutes that you spoke? Because it's been a while since you've concisely detailed what science is and what science isn't. I always love clips of that.
Sure, I'll clip it out for this guy.
Okay. They have a flat Earth
symbol. Yeah.
No, a huge map as you come out of the exit and you're going down the spiral staircase. You have to look at it.
Yeah.
And it's an ice wall around the perimeters.
No, what you're describing is an azimuthal, North Pole-centric, equidistant projection of a globe, projected flat. with an ice wall. That's what you're actually describing. Now, don't get me wrong, this guy's new to this, but it's garbage. All maps are flat. Yeah? The ones that we actually navigate with are flat. So why look at some bloody projection in a foyer at the bottom of stairs to say, what? Check out how interesting this is. No, the only thing that's interesting on that map is the ice wall. Because it's nonsense.
Right. Right, but that's a projection of a globe, and a globe is a projection of the flat Earth's celestial sphere model, which is a projection of flat Earth measurements. That's not really fixing it for them, though, is it?
Yeah, it's easy to overcome. So we can give you the full origin. Okay, this flat plane we're standing on gets measured with angles to the stars. That gets projected onto a map. That then gets wrapped around... Somebody's knocking on my front door. Can you keep up the conversation for a minute while I see who's knocking on my front door?
Is there a horizon on the flat Earth?
What do you mean?
That's a really dumb question. Really dumb question.
Why is
Are
that?
you asking me if there's a geometric obstruction on the flat Earth? Is that what you're asking?
Is that what a horizon is defined as?
No, a horizon is defined as where sea level appears to meet the sky. So you need sea level for a horizon, and that's a flat plane.
So yes is the answer.
No, he said no. It's defined as the point where the ground appears to meet the sky. And that
Yes is
requires
the
a
answer
horizontal
first.
plane of reference called sea level. That's what he actually said.
Yes is the answer to the first question.
I missed the first question. What was the first question?
Yes.
Is there a horizon on
Does the flat Earth have a horizon? Listen, the Earth has a horizon. Like, this is you guys' problem. You guys get into model mode where is it? No, look, we're talking about the Earth. When we're talking about navigation, we're talking about the Earth. If we're talking about the horizon, we talk about the horizon we see on the Earth that we use as a reference for establishing an elevation angle.
Or you can use the Earth as a reference to assert a differential between your eye level and that surface level to later on make a claim that level's curving while using level as a horizontal plane.
Let me get some acknowledgement before we move on from fresh grown flowers.
For which point? There's two different people speaking on two different topics.
And we're all talking on the same topic. Earth as a horizontal reference plane is what we're dealing with. No, no acknowledgement to that. So we have to answer your questions. You don't acknowledge a single word we say. Fresh grown flowers. We've just taken our time to explain something you asked. You're not acknowledging a single word we've said. Matthias, can you go on mute, please? This is fairly standard for the audience's benefit. What the bull believers do is they come to our show, ask us some questions, and when we give them their answers, they don't acknowledge a single word we've just said to them.
He's not a glober. Neither am I. I want to know how you got an angle from a non-physical location.
What non-physical location?
You didn't. You got it from the surface. You got it from level.
Well, you
got the angle from level.
He's answering you.
With the second,
Matthias, he's answering you.
He's
answering you. He's answering you.
No, you asked me a question, Nathan, and I was going to answer it. You said, what physical location? You have two non-physical locations. You have the horizon, which is a non-physical location, and you have your vertical, which is a non-physical location that you're trying to derive an angle from.
Why are you telling me what I'm doing? This is a process called
That's what
There's me talking and answering him. Try again.
You asked me a question.
Yeah, there's him talking through me again. He's asked his
Matthias?
question. I listened. I didn't say a word. Now he's talking through me.
And then
Second
you
attempt.
asked me another question, and I was going to answer you. Don't play the victim card, Nathan. You did ask me a question. I was going to answer you. That's what the sextant does it not?
I don't even own a sextant. Why are you telling me what I did was my question?
That's your whole fucking argument the last 2 years.
Kick him out. Kick him out. Remove him.
Sextant.
Remove him, or I
Kick him
will.
out. I don't like
Dick. Total dick. I'm not doing this. It's a process. It's called celestial navigation. It's not what I'm doing. It's a process. It's on the screen for my audience. Why are you opening mics in G+? Well, I'm obviously in the middle of a sentence. What's going on? No, it's on screen for my audience, taken directly from a navigation manual. It's not my process. It's a well-established mapping process that's derived all of our maps. But yeah, it's going to level at me what I haven't done. Go ahead, Apocryphal.
This is the... Well, sorry.
There's someone else in the queue. Go ahead, Apocryphon.
No, I was just going to make mention that I'm not sure why they're asking... I don't know if they're asking these questions to clarify for, like, so they can take that knowledge elsewhere. Because I want to say, I think they know those answers. But, like, are they asking just to, like, help them explain your answer? I don't know.
Ask Matthias. I'll take him off server mute. You can ask him yourself. We take you off server mute, Matthias. Could you stop swearing, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, so Matthias, I was just curious because I know you know these answers, but are you asking it just to get like an answer to like help the argument to understand it better? I was curious. You and Fresh.
I guess in a way. Okay, I was asking a question. I'm going to answer it. The way I see an angle, like if we all draw an angle, any angle on a piece of paper, you'll have 2 physical lines and 3 physical positions. Correct?
We're not doing this on paper.
Correct?
No, because we're not doing it on paper. It's a false comparison.
So you're not going to record it on paper, what you're doing with the section?
No, you note the time.
Uh-oh.
What do you note? When you've got the angle and someone says check because they've measured the angle, what gets written down? Angle? I'm asking you a question. You're interrupting the middle of my question. Don't play the victim. What do they note when someone says check? Because they're holding a sextant and they've got the angle. What gets written down, Matthias?
And I'm asking you, how did they get the angle to begin with?
With a sextant. What do they write down? You said, I'm addressing your question, which is about writing it on paper, angles on paper. You think that there's waffling through me again.
I wasn't done, Nathan, and you just interrupted me, and then now you're, now you're waffling.
I asked you what you write down.
Done to begin with.
You talked about writing stuff down on paper. I asked you in the actual process, not the one you invented in your mind. I'm just going to mute my Discord line because he's decided he doesn't want to hear me. He wants to hear his own voice while I'm talking. You said write down on paper. I say, what do you write down on paper when you're doing this process?
An assumed angle, I'm guessing.
And?
Because you don't really have
and?
You don't.
And?
Okay, I'm not done. Just let me know whenever I can finish my statement. Okay?
When you answer my bleeding question correctly, which you haven't done.
Oh, correctly. The way you want it answered then.
The way it's done in celestial navigation, something you clearly don't understand, Matthias. Otherwise you'd have the answer and you don't. You'd know what they write down if you knew this process and how it was performed. Instead, you're charging me with whether or not I've done it.
Yeah, the sextant uses...
So what gets written down? You were talking about writing stuff down. What gets written down when you take the angle? It's the 4th time I've asked you. You could have a bit of humility and say, I don't know, because you don't know.
My point, Nathan.
My point is you don't know what you're talking about, and you're challenging me based on zero knowledge of this process and now waffling through me incessantly.
Well, I do know that. Well,
you don't. Otherwise, you'd have told me what gets written down after you measure the angle. You said the angle. Well, that seems a bit self-evident based on the fact you're measuring it. What else gets written down?
You ain't measuring to a non-physical location.
So he's not listening to me now. He's just chanting and rinsing, repeating. You don't measure to a physical... I didn't claim that. There's a process that does get done, and he doesn't know what actually gets done or he'd know what you write down when you're doing the process. Instead, he's just incessantly talking through me so he doesn't have to listen to my 5th repetition of asking him, the guy who says you're going to write stuff down on paper, what gets written down when you do this process?
Whenever you was debating Bob the Fallacy guy in FED 724, you told him...
Non sequitur. I've asked him a question about this process. He's not answering me. He's telling me what happened on a previous show. He just needs to answer my question. What gets written down?
Now you're saying that you can measure.
I don't want you to tell me what I'm saying. I'm asking you what gets written down in this process. It's glaringly obvious to everybody watching that you haven't got the slightest clue how this is done. And you want to tell me what happened on a different show. You don't know how this is done, Matthias. It's very obvious to anybody listening. Otherwise, you'd have told me by now.
Well, if you would stop rumpusing my point.
You don't know what gets written down. You started describing drawing angles on paper. That's not what gets done in celestial navigation. You don't know what gets done in celestial navigation, yet you're here challenging me based on its validity, on the basis of whether or not I've done it or not. Not on the basis of what's actually done, and you don't know what's actually done.
You can't even let me get a single sentence out, Nathan.
What's written down?
Yeah, you're triggered, ain't you?
No, I'm triggered because I'm dealing with a clown who doesn't know what he's talking about and is challenging me on the physical nature of angle measurements. When you say you write them down and must have physical items. No, that's not how the process is done. I've asked you 7 times how it's done and what gets noted when you measure the angle. You don't know.
You don't have the angle to begin with.
You did say that
he's just a dick. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He just wants to chant and ramble through everything everybody's saying.
Okay, so I can say that I can use your same argument. I don't
Shut
know.
up,
You don't know what you're
Matthias.
talking
Nobody gives
about.
a shit. You're just chanting through everybody. You're not listening to anything anybody's got to say. You're no longer part of the conversation. Sod off. Yeah, you want to actually listen to me? Yeah, you might actually gain an education in how this process works. You don't know how it's working. You don't know how it's done. All you want to do is chant through me as I tell you, and you tell me what I've done previously. It's a process. It's called celestial navigation. It doesn't matter what I've done. It matters how the process is performed. And he doesn't know. He's challenging us on it. Outrageous. Fairly standard.
Did he say we were getting an angle from a physical location? I'm pretty sure he said we're getting an
Something
angle
wrong with my
from
mic, man. Y'all can't hear me trying to get in.
Oh, sorry, Eli. Yeah, I was too. Sorry.
All right. So the first thing he said, which is what triggered Nathan, is, well, you're gonna put 2 lines on a piece of paper. See, so okay, first of all, what happens in reality in the process that Nathan is talking about is actually once you take the measurement, you mark down the time.
Location.
Can someone mute Matthias? He's so triggered. He's not letting anybody speak. Right, I've just got no choice. Thank you, moderators. Finally, go ahead, Eli. Matthias wouldn't tolerate being educated in his dumb, stupid understanding he doesn't have.
So you write down the time of measurement. Obviously,
did you hear that, Matthias? Matthias, you stupid man. Yeah, the time. Yeah, 7 attempts. You didn't know. You stupid idiot.
I said it 3 times.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know how this process is done. He's challenging me on how it's done. He hasn't got the slightest idea, has he? Clearly. He wants to chant and ramble through everything everyone says. What a dick.
He also said that we were getting an angle from a non-physical location.
Hold on. John, then the DALA. Go ahead, John.
He said we were trying to get an angle from a non-physical location. No, that's not what you do. You can take a stick and put it in a flat surface and get an elevation angle without using a sextant. You can use a bubble sextant that uses a level plane to get an angle. You just need level to be a horizontal plane to get an elevation angle.
Yeah, it's a prerequisite. The
That's
reference
the whole point.
is a flat plane. DALA.
Thanks, Nathan. No, I had the same conversation with him last week. He did the exact same thing with me. He just doesn't want to comprehend, and he just doesn't understand what the process is. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, don't come here shouting and ranting and telling me I'm playing the victim when you haven't got the slightest idea what you're babbling about and feel the need to chant through everybody who does. Matthias represents all the rest of you flat earthers, so don't quite get it yet. It's just a little bit too complicated for you. Well, let me just enlighten you in what's really going on here. You're stupid. If you don't understand how Earth's being measured flat with the horizontal plane of reference that is absolutely required to take these angle measurements, then you're just stupid. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it anymore. A lot of people in flat Earth are thick. Yeah? You're all thick. If you don't get this, you're just stupid. It's that simple. Matthias is one of those. He doesn't get it because he's too stupid to get it. It's not even that complicated. "10 years we've been asked for a silver bullet. Where's your silver bullet? Where's your proof that Earth is flat? Here's our proof it's measured that way. Oh, well, how's that measuring? We get from flat earthers. Now, the Globers can accept it because they require it. When they put forth their mathematical propositions of Earth's sphericity, they utilise a flat plane measurement to make those claims. That's why they're not denying it. So who is denying it? Idiot flat earthers who can't comprehend it. That's who's denying it.
That's what's annoying, because we got the silver bullet. What's wrong with you? It's plain and simple. It's laid out every day on this show. What's the problem?
Shout out to Chow Young Cat. He says, "Guard what has been entrusted to your care. Turn away from godless chatter and the opposing ideas of what is falsely called knowledge." 1 Timothy 6:20. Thank you for the super chat. 100+ people watching. Very good. Should we get back onto this video now we've dealt with Matthias?
Well, yeah, but right before we do, you can get an elevation angle to a rainbow. Does that mean a rainbow has a physical location?
No.
No.
That kind of runs his argument then, doesn't it?
What we're dealing with is GP positions, right? The stars are not physical in terms of their measurement in celestial navigation. I don't care if they are or not in reality. It makes absolutely no difference. It's not part of the claim. It's not part of the process. It's not required. What is required is for you to know accurately where, that's a location on the ground, a star will be at a given time. That is to say, if you look above your head at any given time, there's a good chance there's going to be a star there. Now, it may not be directly above your zenith for all those pedantic idiots that want to chant in the comments. But let's, for the sake of argument, give an oversimplistic description of you in the night right now, looking up above your head and seeing a star. Then you look at your watch and go, 8:47. That means that when you took that angle to that star, directly at your zenith, that's 90 degrees, at that time, the star was above that point on the ground. And you know what we're doing when we navigate? We're navigating the ground. So knowing where something that is above the ground that you can see is above is incredibly useful. In fact, it's the entire basis for our mapping system and navigation. Full stop. It requires Earth be flat. Now, if you, as I say, it's only the flat earthers that are struggling with this. Because what? It's too good to be true. Well, after 4 months, I'm sick of sugarcoating it and trying to take you all by the hand and say, no, I'll explain how measuring something is measuring something. If you can't get it, you're too stupid to be in the discussion. Stop talking about it. Stop arguing this subject if you can't wrap your head around it. If you haven't got an advanced enough intellect to be able to comprehend and then reiterate something to someone else, don't do it. Just shut your mouth. You're doing a disservice to the subject by ranting and rambling about how you don't understand things. Because that's all you're really demonstrating, your own bloody ignorance, when you challenge us on how we measure something in a process that's established our entire mapping system. It's not whether or not I can do it. What aren't you getting, flat earthers? This is your silver bullet. Been asking for it for 10 years. We're giving it you and you're arguing with it.
Believe in using, well, don't believe in, whatever. You don't utilize the black swan argument as it relates to the horizon that they claim was blocking boats and buildings. You don't use the celestial navigation argument as it pertains to using the Earth as a flat, horizontal, plane, straight, horizon, all of these words synonymous. You don't do that. What do you do?
Shout out to Himsake, who says, when I bring up elevation angles, globers and flat earthers bring up tangents. What, flat planes of reference that have a single point on the ground? when we're dealing with points on the ground miles away from where you're measuring. The ground positions aren't on tangents. And what are tangents? Straight lines to give you a horizontal plane of reference to take these measurements to in a globe model and from a flat plane in reality. Why are they drawing out a tangent? Oh, so they've got a horizontal plane of reference to reference, but their tangent doesn't meet points on the ground. And ground positions do. So there goes that argument. Thank you for the super chat, him's sake.
Actually, the tangent that they invoke has a name within the mathematics. It's clearly labeled.
It's called surface level. Yeah. If you get a globe believer or flat earther telling you there's a tangent, take them to the Earth curve maths and show them what their tangent's called. It's called surface level. That would be the surface when you take a horizontal plane of reference. It's a reference plane, plane being flat and reference meaning you reference it for ground positions, not on tangents. But like I say, take them to the Earth curve maths and say, what this tangent labelled surface level. Yeah, you'll need that surface level to be flat, and you'll need it to have ground positions of stars meeting it, because you're measuring where the star is above on the ground, not on a tangent in a model that you're not measuring in reality. But that's their excuses. Fair enough. Doesn't change the fact that we're measuring Earth flat, and they're just making an excuse. Yeah, we measure Earth flat. We measure Earth flat with a tangent. So notice how the globers embrace the fact that we're measuring it flat and make an excuse for how flat they must measure it by drawing a tangent to their globe. They're not measuring their globe. They're measuring a flat plane they've slapped on top of it that won't have ground positions meeting it. They're not denying that we measure Earth flat. They're invoking a new tangent plane to reference that hasn't got ground positions on it. So they're still measuring a flat plane. It's just not their globe anymore. So they understand that they've got to measure flat, but the flat earthers don't. Why? Well, I've come to one conclusion and one conclusion only. There's a lot of stupid idiots in flat Earth.
And it's a flat Earth. Yeah. And it's also in New York City. I think it's in one. I think it's in Grand Central Station.
Dallas.
It's in one of those stations.
In Dallas too.
Yes, it's in a lot of places.
Yeah. So isn't that also the new?
In these airports, they've got pictures of minotaurs. Have you ever seen the pictures of the minotaurs? Ergo, minotaurs are real. There's loads of pictures of them. Isn't it very suspicious? Not in the slightest. Meanwhile, those maps, when put into practical application, need Earth to be measured flat. That's a far better argument.
What is it? United Nations symbol.
It's the UN flag, and it's also it's officially called the azimuthal equidistant map. But yeah, it's all the same thing, and that's so the UN can use as their.
That's not true, Mark. It's called the azimuthal equidistant North Pole centric projection because it's projected from the North Pole. You can project an azimuthal equidistant globe projection from any point on Earth that we have already mapped flat. That particular one has a ice wall and a North Pole centric system. It is an azimuthal equidistant projection, but it's North Pole centric.
Their flag, and it's totally legit. But if we say, "Oh no, it's what the map we use in our community," and they'll go, "No, you're crazy." It's like, really? It's the same map. And by the way, the UN flag, real quick.
I don't claim an azimuthal equidistant globe projection as my map. No, all maps are flat. The methodology used on those maps is elevation angle measurement. Pick your map, I don't care which one. They'll all be using latitude and longitude grids on them. So they'll all be measured flat, without exception. It doesn't matter which map you pick. Furthermore, they're all flat. There is no globe-shaped map. So what, one with an ice wall suddenly piques your interest more than one without? Who cares? They're all being utilised in terms of the process of them. Flat. For elevation angles. Doesn't matter which map you use.
Continent that's missing on the UN flag, and which is Antarctica. An entire continent is not on the UN flag, and instead is replaced by these giant spiky Greco-Roman wreaths on the outside. It's like, wow, that's kind of interesting. Right. I mean, Antarctica is at least as big as Australia.
This is a crap argument. Right, I'm going to cover why this is a crap argument in a minute. Tom, shout out for the super chat. What's salty? What Xalty? I think that's supposed to be salty. is difference between the azimuth projection map North Pole centric being from a globe versus the longitude grid itself, also North Pole centric. What do you mean? What's the difference in the projection in terms of how the map's laid out? Probably very little, Tom. But both of them have come from flat Earth measurements of Polaris in the first instance to give you the latitude grid. That's the point. Without that latitude grid measured on a flat plane, there are no maps. They all require Earth to have a horizontal plane of reference. That means we measure it. We're measuring the angles to the stars with respect to the horizontal plane of reference we are standing on. That's how it's done. And that is how it's done to give you latitude. It doesn't matter which map. It really doesn't. They're all flat for a reason. This is a crap argument from Mark. Now, in the past, we've made apologies from Mark and said, oh, well, it's a nice soft landing for people who are coming to the subject. Now I don't care. I've just spent literally 10 minutes telling my community that they're stupid if they don't understand this. So, you know, I'm all in, right? So I might as well in for a penny. We have got demonstrable factual proof of continents that have been discovered in our known history. They're very, very well documented. Plenty of people who live on those new territories, known as new worlds, will testify to the fact that their position on the map exists because they're living there and they've got internet access and telephones and electricity and sewerage. So they've got all of the common amenities that the Western world person is accustomed to in these new worlds. Now, how did we discover these new worlds? Well, we went out using the stars and flat Earth angle measurements so we could find our way back as we explored the territory formerly known as space. And we found new worlds when travelling out flat on the flat world we mapped flat with flat angle measurements to the stars that we used to find our way home. So, we could A, talk about how there's no Antarctica on the UN map, or B, talk about how we factually measured it flat and discovered new worlds in space in our recent history. Right up until the point that space stopped being the area out beyond the horizon and started being the area above our head, a sky vacuum. So we used to find tons and tons and tons of land to live on, to farm, to get resources from. But then that all stopped. Now we ponder whether or not there's an Antarctic ice wall and whether or not we can go out to a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum to get soil, to get rocks, right, from the sky. Crap argument, useless as all hell. Who cares if there's a real Antarctica? We found new worlds flat. It's easy to prove and there's no ambiguity to it in the argument. You're going to debate with me about finding the Americas flat? Because we did. There's no ambiguity there. Ice walls, you can argue the toss with neutral outcomes for this for days. Doesn't prove anything. Demonstrating how the world was factually measured flat to give us those new worlds does prove something. Thank you, Tom.
Well, the thing is why isn't Antarctica, which is not a nation, it's a continent that they're describing, it is not a nation. Why is Antarctica not on the United Nations map? Because it's not a nation. It's that simple.
If you're trying to prove Earth's flat, would you not just say, we found new worlds, travelling out towards the horizon, mapping the world flat, taking angles as we went? Would you not just do that? Because that's not an agree-disagree situation, is it? It's not like Antarctica.
Right, and the Antarctica thing, it's obviously false. I just gave you the reason that it's not on the United Nations map is because it's not a nation to be united with.
But all that does is take away the...
How is it an argument?
All it does is take away the mystery shrouded in Antarctica. Now, we said this yesterday, right? There's two ways of selling something. One is with a glamorous naked lady draped across it. The other is to just tell you about the toothpaste and how it makes your teeth stronger. You know, one is a lot less glamorous than the other. Selling the idea of a flat Earth by selling the idea that there could be a mysterious world that's been deceived, or people have been deceived about, called Antarctica, might spark people's imagination for the new territory that may or may not be around us in a full 360-degree reef if I debunk it, or as John just did and said, well, of course it's not on the United Nations map, it's not a United Nation. Does that undo the argument that Earth's flat? Because it's a rebuttal to the point that's been put by Mark. Now, if I put to you that there's Earth being travelled, measured, mapped, and navigated flat to find the new worlds, there is absolutely nothing anybody can say to challenge that whatsoever. It is a fact. And it proves we're navigating Earth flat with the maps that are used in that process. And the worlds that are there and have definitely been colonised are real.
Believe what science tells you, but it's not there.
Although I have to say, I don't trust the UN, anything about it. They want to be...
Don't need to if you come here. Come here and you'll know Earth's measured flat and mapped flat and navigated flat and obviously and observably flat for everyone, always. And that's how all the systems that are in place are utilised. You don't need any belief. You don't need to worry about what the UN says. You don't need to worry about what NASA says. Don't need to worry about any of that. If you'd come here first, no offence to Mark Sargent, you'd know that beyond all doubt at this point. Shout out to Unitox Femu. Which MSP curves Suez Canal, Florida and Bolivia? Thank you for the super chat.
They want the United States to be under their control. No, thank you.
Right.
We know that.
So,
but what do you think, Mark?
Yeah.
When did you? Let me put on my glasses. Because I don't like the bags under my eyes; they really bother me. So that gave me an excuse to be like, "Hey, we're going bunker. Put on the glasses." When did you start? When did you start diving into this?
2014, after I had run out of every other conspiracy I could think of. That was when I started. Because I never got married. And if you're a tech guy, if you're into tech, you are on the internet a lot. And you go down a lot of different rabbit holes. And I'd run out of rabbit holes. And finally, it's like, okay, I'm not getting any younger. Let's look at this flat Earth piece of crap. Like, I hated flat Earth. Absolutely hated it. Everybody that gets into
so did I.
Yeah, I know one of my friends, David Weiss from DITRH. He used to ban people that would bring it up in chat forever, like lifetime bans. He'd be like, banned. You bring it up flat Earth, banned. And I looked at it and I thought, okay, I can shoot this thing down at a weekend. And that weekend turned into a month, which turned into 9 months. And then finally, at the beginning of 2015, I just asked the internet for help. I made a series of videos called Flat Earth Clues. And I said, okay, I can't prove the globe in a court of law anymore. I didn't even like saying the word flat Earth. And I put it out there with all my contact information, which is a smart thing to do. Put all your contact information on every video you make. And waited for the shoe to drop. And it never did. But I had people immediately start contacting me, military people, saying, okay, it's not that nuts. Here's why. It's like, what?
What? No, all right. When you say like a military person,
yeah.
Like who's reaching
out?
out?
Oh, good Lord.
Like someone you know?
Complete strangers were contacting me. The first guy was a guy named Sean McCrary. He was a Sparrow missile system instructor for the United States Navy. He was the very first guy. And he goes, I want to go public with this. I want to talk about this. He goes, we do not account for curvature over the spin of the Earth in any of our firing solutions for missiles. And I go, you really want to go public for this? He goes, yep, I do. And I think I mentioned to you briefly when we were talking last week or a couple days ago, where I said when we did that podcast with...
He's obviously talked about it so much, but that is such a great proof. I might as well cover it now if Mark's not going to. So Mark had a guy on that was, as he's already suggested, a crew member of operating Sea Sparrow missile type 2, I believe, surface to air and surface to surface. And this missile has a pencil laser that has to lock onto the target. Now, admittedly, they can use this firing system at a much greater range, but publicly disclosed is 60 miles. That is to say that you can paint a target, as it's phrased, or phrased by the guy who was telling Mark this, at 60 miles, as far as he can disclose to the public. Now, he didn't go into why you wouldn't want to disclose greater distances, but that is the distance, and it's only needed at that distance to disprove that there's anything in the way, because there would be if you've got a sphere Earth belief based on flat Earth measurements to assert that there's a hill getting in the way that we debunked in 2020 with the Black Swan. Meanwhile, that is an exceptional demonstration of painting a target without anything getting in the way when there's supposed to be a physical geometric sphere edge blocking your view of the target in the distance. There isn't they paint the target, and when it's painted, the missile can lock onto that target so long as it remains with a little laser actually on the ship from 60 miles away at the maximum publicly disclosable distance. There you go. If you didn't know it, check out Mark's video on the Sea Sparrow missile with an interview with somebody who operated it.
With him, the DoD was pinging our server nonstop. Not because of flat Earth, but because he was a missile system instructor. And they're like, oh, please, God, don't let him tell us how to compromise the missile system. And then a sub guy contacted me, a retired master gunner, tank commander, howitzers, every.
I know who that sub guy was. So he was anonymous, but I found out who he was. Someone told me.
Just about all branches of the service and then air traffic controllers, pilots, everybody except aerospace contacted me. And they all kept adding the same thing. It's like, yeah, it's not nuts. Look into this, little mini deep throat things. So
mini what?
Because I'm, like I said, the more I look into it, and the water thing really hit me.
Water lays flat.
Meaning, water always lays flat.
Okay. As much as I appreciate Mark, right? But the problem for me is with telling those type of stories is you don't have any reference. As it comes to like celestial navigation, GIS systems, all of those things have references. So you can refer people to a documentation and say, yep, there you go read for yourself. There it is. That's the proof. I just wanted to say that.
I agree. On the one hand, I don't typically use that. If you're an audience member, you'll have never heard me use that example. Now, it's on QE's site as one of his proofs, and it is a proof, but it's a proof based on that person's first-hand account of not seeing any obstruction to account for and dealing with Earth flat. Now, as first-hand testimony goes, that's exceptional. But for me, it stays in isolation as its first-hand testimony. So I can refer someone to that, like I just did, first-hand testimony. Like I'd refer someone to Robert Shortman when they're talking about Antarctica. He's been down there. He spent 18 months down there. There's no 24-hour sun down there. His first-hand testimony stated that. Now, you can, like anybody does when they're covering flat Earth and they hear something they don't like, they'll immediately question the person's credibility. Fine. Yeah? Again, I don't necessarily lean on Antarctica. Doesn't mean it's not interesting when somebody who's actually spent 18 months down there gives their account of there being no 24-hour sun. That's interesting. It's interesting when someone says they paint a target 60 miles plus away with a laser and there's nothing getting in the way. That is exceptional testimony. But I just personally don't like going forward with that and using it as an example. It might come up in conversation like it's come up in this video, but would I go to somebody and say, the Sea Sparrow missile operator doesn't account for Earth curve? Because I would assume, unless you're hearing him give his first-hand testimony to Mark, with literally him hanging out a helicopter showing him landing on the ship, and things of that nature, which he did have, and him in the operating room writing on the back of a napkin, Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues, so you know it's not a sham. He is actually in that room operating that missile. He is definitely what he says he is. Wonderful. To prove what he says for him as an individual. It's just never been for me. So I completely agree with you.
I got the technical. No. It's not testimony. I got the technical specs on my Globe Terminator website.
You've got the publicly disclosed technical specs?
Yep.
Fair enough. It's just not something that you can physically do. Yeah, I can't go on sit on that bridge or whatever the missile operating room is called and verify it. Now, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying it's not a good proof. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that unless it was me on that gunship operating the Sea Sparrow, it wouldn't be a story I'd want to reiterate because it's not mine.
I'll do it.
You can do it. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that I'm just saying it's just not for me. You're ex-military.
What tab it is, QE? I know I've been on that side a while, but you know what tab it is under? Because I like to give references.
It's peanut butter jelly time.
Do I know what is?
What time it is?
What time it is?
Peanut butter jelly. Peanut butter jelly.
What tab? What tab TAB.
Oh, just go to Flat Earth Proofs on the left-hand side, and it gives the whole list. And ESSM Block 1 is part of it.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So that is the globeterminator.com. That's QE's website, and in one of the tabs, it's in Flat Earth Proof. Scroll down, you'll find the ESM Type 1, I was wrong, Sea Sparrow missile. And the example, presumably a link to Mark's video, along with all the technical data. So if you want to check it out, go ahead, go to the globeterminator.com. Check it out. It's a really good website. But QE, I've heard him say it only last night, so I'm quite confident in saying this. The number one flat Earth proof that there is elevation angles. There is no higher standard to attain. It is the basis of our mapping system. It's the basis of our navigation system. It's the basis of the measurement of Earth. There isn't a better standard to achieve. If we'd have had this in 2014, if Mark had had this in 2014, he'd have run with this. Earth's measured flat. Navigation itself. The way the boat's making its way around the sea, forget about shooting something 60 miles away. They're measuring stars 1,000 miles away. Flat. And you can do it too. Not like the Sea Sparrow, where you can't necessarily go in and paint another ship 60 miles away with a laser and then fire a missile at it. That's not really in my remit. But measuring a star 1,000 miles away to its GP position along a flat baseline, I can definitely do that. I haven't, and I don't need to. It's a well-established process. Anybody can look it up. We understand how it's done. Members of my family may have done it in practical application on boats that I didn't own. Right, should we carry on with this video unless there's any other comments on this?
And water, no matter what, if you turn it, whatever, it always looks for a flat. It flattens its surface. Yeah. So, you know, if we're on a ball, how's the water just not going?
Right.
You know, either fall off or whatever, and then people say, "Well, gravity." Right. I love when people say that, and they know what they're talking about.
And for your listeners, another thing which I just thought of, which is, look, find me curved ice anywhere when water lays perfectly flat, and it.
That is genius, Mark. Hats off to you. Has anybody heard that before? Anybody heard that example? That was absolutely brilliant. For all the criticism I've given Mark, he just gets 200,000% props for that. Show me curved ice. That's genius.
It freezes, it's absolutely tabletop flat, hence ice skating, right? No, there is no curved ice anywhere. I mean, yeah, you can
there's no like today at the roller rink, we'll be at the ice ball. You know, maybe you can do a couple circles around the ball. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. There's no such thing as ice forming in a circle. Yeah. It forms flat unless
the Queen of England, before she died, quite famously requested that she never had square or flat-sided ice cubes because she hated the sound of them clinking in the glass. So she had them specifically made round. This is our Queen. I don't want square ice cubes. Make them round so they don't make a clinking sound.
You purposely make it like in a tray or something.
Yeah, but have you ever seen these videos in like where they say they're out in space and you know, they'll have a drop of water, right?
Right.
And they'll you know, float it by.
Yeah, in an area that violates the second law of thermodynamics, a sky vacuum. Yeah, those are all CGI.
You know, like in the absence of gravity,
absence of gravity. Gravity is not a force. There's nothing to be absent of. It's a pseudo geometry, fourth dimensional in nature.
Blob of water does become a circle.
Right. But that's water tension, and you can only use that for a certain size of water, and then it starts getting all wobbly. It's really, really tough to hold.
Will he address gravity? The guys brought up gravity twice, one each for each of the guys.
Hold into a sphere. By the way, our community doesn't even use circle; we use a ball or sphere or globe. But yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, little thing I learned years ago, which was when they make buckshot for shotguns, you know how they do it?
Drop it down a tower.
They drop it. They drop lead from a certain height, and on its way down, with the tension, it forms into tiny little balls. on the way down, and then it cools.
It drops in the water or something.
No, well, no, it just it cools literally on the way down. By the time it hits the bottom, it's cooled. Anyway, but to your point, as far as the videos, they used to do, now it's a combination of CGI, but before CGI, they used to do something on parabolic flights. You know what those are? Like, it's called the vomit comet.
No.
Okay, so you could, so you take a plane.
Jimmy knows.
You empty out a plane.
Weird hearing this because Mark's approach to this is so alien to us, isn't it?
And you put people, you can pay for
Yeah, because telling someone how they're faking it isn't really as powerful as telling them why they have to fake it.
Yeah, I agree.
I need to do this even now if you want. It's called simulated anti-gravity. And you get to plane and you basically nose down at a certain angle in the plane and you're
Yeah, this kind of irks me again. You need to undo this claim of gravity because at the end of this process, there's just going to be an assumption that there is some gravity.
And you're basically...
That was my point of interjection there, Nathan.
Go on, Adam.
Anti-gravity. No. This is called defenestration. Yeah? There's no need to invoke the opposite of gravity, something that doesn't exist, to describe what it's just like when you're free falling. That's all it is. Free falling in a box or a plane. To try and describe it in their paradigm as anti-gravity. When, like I said, all you're doing is free falling. There's no need to invoke it.
All that the globe has done with gravity, if you want it in the most simplistic idea without undoing Einsteinian or Newtonian claims of gravity, understand what they've done with the scale. Yeah? If you ignore gas behaviour, that is to say, the fact that gas disperses upwards, outwards, in all directions, all vectors at high velocity, and only in isolation take the effects of solid, more dense items moving through the medium of air, and you assert that all things go down. What they then do is change the scale. So as you're sat in your chair, yeah, you are not moving. You are, as far as I am concerned, at zero. You're not moving up, you're not moving down, you're stationary. That would be perfectly reasonable to describe as zero. Wrong! That's 1. 1G. Zero's when you're falling, obviously. No, it isn't, but they've moved the scale. So now when you're floating around, in reality, dropping through the sky at a high rate of speed with the item you're falling in falling at the same relationship to you falling, it seems inside the vessel like you're not attached to the vessel. You're not. You're both falling. It's falling, you're falling in it. That's all that's happening. But that's zero, according to their shift in scale. Not falling, not a rate of speed. No, that's zero. That's what they've done with gravity. That's all they've done. It's such a simple trick. Move what is originally stationary and zero and describe zero as falling and 1 as stationary. That's all they've done. 1G. What's a G? A bent pseudo-Riemannian force-space geometry? No, there isn't anything to ascribe on a scale. It's just a hijacking of things falling through air when they're more dense than it. Not that everything does that. Plenty of things go up. But if you ignore all those things and only focus on the stuff that goes down and then reassign the scale to be zero when you're falling, then you've got gravity. Then you can have this argument that Mark's having. Doesn't help, doesn't debunk anything.
You start.
Yeah, you're skydiving without wind is what you're doing, because you're basically you're in a plane that's falling at free fall speed, and you can record in there. I mean, you can watch what water happens in that, and it's like, okay, water falling inside this airplane. When they got to the CGI stages, that's when everything changed. Then they didn't have to use the parabolic flight so much to fake it.
But just to speak to John's point earlier, explaining how they fake it isn't as good as explaining why they need to fake it. The reason they need to fake it is because we're on a flat plane and there is no orbital motion. The mathematics of orbital motion are derived from flat plane measurements and therefore would contradict the idea of having a sphere to fall around, because it's been measured flat. Furthermore, the area that they claim we're falling around when at zero, falling at high rate of speed, described with orbital mechanics, taken off a flat plane, ignores the effects of things going up. So rather than saying why they are faking it, he's saying how they are faking it. The reason they are faking it is because there is no sky vacuum. To give you an idea of what it would be like to be falling perpetually around a sphere in a concept derived from measurements of a plane that's flat, can't happen. Because it can't happen, they need to lie and create CGI images and parabolic flights, because there is no sky vacuum and there is no orbit.
So, but
Right.
always interesting that the ISS is almost exactly as wide as the inside of an airplane, you know, filled with material. And there's always this noise. And there's so much wrong with the ISS. I could spend forever on it. But anyway, go ahead.
You could, but you'd be better off saying the ISS isn't what they say it is, because they're claiming it's a tin can in a sky vacuum. And if it can float around a derived flat Earth measurement, which is absurd, in a sky vacuum, then the gas we're breathing would vacate into that area also, and we'd all be dead. We'd never have any gas to breathe. Space is a second law of thermodynamics violation. Go ahead.
Sorry, got you done. So that response kind of sums up the different approaches. Yeah, Mark's going to attack what it is. We won't even touch that. We just go where they claim it is. The difference in approach is a much more friendly approach from Mark, and probably more suited to a pub, but I don't think he's dealing. This is the frustration, isn't it? You're not dealing with the nub of the argument. You're not addressing the person to a point of rebuttal. You're just arguing the nuances, aren't you? We're back to will photographic plates work in space? Again, not remembering what space, dude.
Yeah, we're looking for plot holes in Narnia.
I'm sure you got questions.
What, Jim? Jimbo, what were you
No, I was going to say ISS, International Space Station, NASA.
NASA's a joke.
Has been debunked. NASA's been debunked for many, many years. And,
let's see if he has a comprehension of how they've been debunked.
And if that people haven't seen that, you can find too much information.
So, if you, the audience, don't know that space is debunked, go out and research it. That's crap. Space is fake. It's a second law of thermodynamics violation. Second law of thermodynamics describes how gas disperses. Entropy. So gas dispersion, law of nature, how gas expands to fill space, is the undoing of this argument. Gas fills space. We'd all be dead. We'd have no gas to breathe if there was a space above our head.
That's how we...
the fake micro.
I mean, if your standard is you'd prefer me say, oh, space is fake, go out and have a look if you didn't know there's loads of stuff debunking it. Because that's crap.
Phone handoff. Have you seen the green screen?
Thank you.
Yeah, in Narnia, they've got all this fake snow. It's made from a styrofoam. It's really obvious. They had to go through a wardrobe to get there, though. Yeah, time stops still for them in the real world as they're in there. There's talking lions and witches with magic. But the snow's fake. It's got green screen. Look, there's a green screen used in the modern Narnia. Yeah, Narnia's not real. Who cares that they're using green screen? Who cares that they're dropping their keys in a claim to be zero-G environment? Who cares that they're supposed to be filming back from the Earth with a piece of cardboard in front of the window? They're in a place that is not real. Doesn't matter that the Turkish delights came out of nothing. That is not how you debunk Narnia.
The cables. Let me just move this guy's.
Yeah, you saw the sticks for Aslan, didn't you? You could see that he was an automaton. You could see that they were blinking his eyes with little motors. Therefore, Narnia's not real. Crap. Standard. Narnia's not real because we can't traverse wardrobes. There is no place beyond a wardrobe that we can go to. And there is no place above our heads a volume for gas to fill with gas not filling it. It's a violation of natural law.
Cable here. The gel in the hair with the girls.
Right? It is from a stagecraft standpoint.
Yeah, it's a stage show. Why are they having the stage show, though? That's the point. That's what debunks it. Why? Why have a green screen? Why have parabolic maneuvers? Why have the ISS? What's it all for? Not how they pretend there's an ISS. Because For all you know, they could turn around and say, yeah, they've got green screens on the ISS. Where'd you go from here? Yeah, they do put gel in their air. Gets all in their way when they're floating around, so they gel it all up. Yeah, and? So if they come back at you with this standard, equally garbage to the standard being laid down, what are you going to do then? Yeah, they do have ISS green screens. Space is still real then? No. If you point out that there's a violation of natural law going on in the area that they claim to be where they've got their green screens, your argument's going to actually win, as opposed to leave people thinking, maybe I should go and look at some videos and see if I can find out how space is fake.
It is atrocious. I mean, I am stunned. I look at it, it's like, who is producing this? It is the worst. When the women came out with their hair doing the Bride of Frankenstein thing, when they permed the hair.
Yeah, Aslan did not look at all real. It was really obvious he had motors inside him. It was obvious he wasn't a real lion. It's a joke. It's terrible. Therefore, Narnia's not real.
Hair straight up.
Yeah.
And I'm going,
oh my God.
that is the last thing you would ever do, right? Normally, because like, okay, all you have to do is put a hat on them, tie their hair back, whatever. It's like, oh, no. We want to try to simulate anti-gravity and the general public will believe it. It's like, why would they believe it? I mean, you could bounce a quarter off that hair. It was awful. But
it's like they jumped the shark.
Absolutely. But it even bypasses the one part about that was clever, which was it completely blew past the whole point, which is nobody should have hair in an ISS at all because the air filtration system. Nobody should have hair. They should absolutely be shaved. I mean, eyebrows, the whole 9 yards. It should be like a swimming pool.
In space, in a sky vacuum that can't exist, we should be shaving our heads. Okay.
Yep, that's what I was getting ready to say. So because she didn't cut her hair, it's not real? Really? That's the best you got?
Yeah, this is the Dave Weiss standard. Look, they've got gel in their hair. Okay. So if I show you on an itinerary that they take gel up, does that overcome the problem? Yeah, it does for a globe believer, yeah. If I point out that gas fills space, and what do you know? They claim that the area above our head is called space. Gas would fill it. It's a law of nature. It occurs always. There's no ambiguity about shaved heads when it comes to natural law. Space is fake because gas would fill the space. And we're breathing high pressure gas.
You know, at a public pool where like women had to wear hairnets back in the day. I think they still do.
Yeah.
And that's what, because, you know, like you have like an 8-inch strand of hair that breaks off and starts floating through. That would be disgusting. It would be absolutely, and it would clog up the system in 2 seconds. And so it's like, why do these women have long hair? And then it's like, wait a minute, why does anybody have hair? They wouldn't, absolutely wouldn't. Yeah. And the wires. Thank you, by the way, for bringing up that, the microphone, the hat handoff that never happened. It was like, that was the most egregious thing ever. You ever seen somebody grab something that wasn't there and put nothing away on the shelf?
Yeah, I saw it in a video from NASA, and perfectly legit says all globe believers. Meanwhile, they're operating an area that isn't real. I'm going to go with, regardless of how much CGI you show me, how many anomalies you show me, how many continuity errors you show me, it won't alter the fact that the area that they're operating from is completely fake. In fact, it works quite heavily in their advantage if you argue about the fakery, because the premise that the space that they're in is still real stands true at every point of this discussion. At no point does any audience member appreciate that there isn't a sky vacuum when debating about whether or not they should or shouldn't have hair gel.
And I show that normies, you know, space lovers, and they're like, oh well, they short circuit. They
don't. Well, this is where we're at, Mark. Yeah. It's like when you show people that, like, I can show people and they'll go, it's on the internet, or I'll go, whether it's the actual footage.
Yeah.
Like, right. What do you?
Yeah,
it's the actual footage from Narnia. It really is footage from Narnia. It's just that the lion doesn't look very real, and there's styrofoam for snow that proves that Narnia is not real. That's the standard here. Not that we obviously all regularly go through wardrobes. Not that obviously all of us are traversing high pressure gas into sky vacuums. Oh no, it's only the priests that do that in violation of natural law. We won't focus on that though. They've got hair gel. The Narnia lion's not very realistic. The production wasn't very good. You saw screens that were green at certain points. In fact, you saw a Ford Transit in the background of one of the scenes. So yeah, Narnia's not real because there was a Ford Transit in one of the scenes. Nothing to do with wardrobes, nothing to do with interdimensional time travel. Those things are definitely standing true. We're not going to attack those.
How do you not? But they don't. They can't wrap their heads around. They just can't, or they don't want to. It's weird.
I've had
real quick. There's a movie coming out soon on Netflix called "Fly Me to the Moon."
Scarlett Johansson.
And the premise is during the 1960s space race between the United States and the Soviet Union, a relationship develops between the NASA director in charge of an Apollo 11 launch and the marketing specialist brought in to fix NASA's public image and stage a backup fake moon landing.
That
the movie's about.
Who cares? We know it's fake. All of them are fake. Another fake moon landing, it doesn't make any difference, right? It doesn't matter how many trips to Narnia they take. Narnia's not real. Space isn't real. It's a violation of a natural law.
That is.
So is this? Are they starting to put out? Is this the beginning of, or is this more propaganda?
I think it's
to spear up.
I think it's a little bit of muddying the waters because that movie that Mike just mentioned. Hi, Mike. By the way, it is the remake of a British film that touched on the same subject from a few years ago. This one's, of course, a little higher octane with Scarlett Johansson. I think Channing Tatum's in it, and the premise is
correct.
Yeah, the premise is that you create a backup film reel for the moon missions in case they die in real life. So the moon missions actually happen, but in case they tank and crater it on the moon, you can run this and no one will know the difference, right?
Yeah, it's all just imaginary narratives created for you to argue within the context of space being real. So space is still real, but the reason we've got dodgy footage is because they filmed it in advance before going to the moon just in case they died when travelling through a sky vacuum that isn't real. So just in case they died when traversing the wardrobe, because they definitely will go through it, we also filmed some autonomous lions with them, talking to them, just in case they died when they went through the wardrobe. So that explains everything, except for travelling through wardrobes and to sky vacuums.
Which begs
How
the
long
question.
Mark
It's like
been in the game?
10 years.
This is a shame. This is a shame. I got a headache, and I feel like I went to a time machine. Come on.
why would you ever try to do it in the first place? Why would you ever try to do it for real? Right. And by the way, that was
you can't do it for real. You can't travel past high pressure gas to a point called the Kármán line where the gas stops expanding into the high vacuum above it that you're going to be traveling through to get to the moon. That isn't going to happen because the gas would fill the space.
Another thing, one of the reasons why our community just kept growing and growing and growing was because the moon missions aged so horribly. Apollo, even back in the day, after they cut it off in 1970.
That is true. Even I, with my higher standard of evidence with gas pressure filling space, will agree that you've only got to look at the 1960s/70s moon landing footage to know it's absolutely atrocious in terms of its technical prowess and quality. It's clearly stop motion animation. And if you can't recognize that, then again, you're just stupid.
72, the last Apollo mission, there were guys, this was way before the internet, there were people, who could you tell, right? So you had to go to like UFO conventions with like a table at a booth, with, and be like, look, these things don't, and it was the super nerds, it was the science guys that were out there. Let's like, look, this doesn't match up and this doesn't make sense, but no one was listening to them. So that when we finally came out, we had a whole bunch of anti-Apollo people that were like, okay, yeah, now I can get on this train.
So then there was Stanley Kubrick was supposed to be involved.
Well, right up until the point that Quantum Eraser came into this discussion, nobody was talking about the sky vacuum being fake. So there might have been a load of anti-Apollo people talking about flags not waving on moons, but none of them were pointing out that there wasn't a sky vacuum and it was a violation of natural law till QE got here.
Involved in the landing.
Oh,
right? Have you heard that?
He absolutely was involved. Real quick trivia for you. Kubrick was Kubrick was approached in the early 60s. NASA was founded in 1958. And Kubrick was approached sorry, 1959, 58. He was approached in, I think, like 63, and there was a number of directors, and they approached him because he had already done Dr. Strangelove. And they did it without, he did it without the government's permission. In fact, he had went to him and said, hey, can I get inside like a B-52, look around, take some photos? Because I want to do a movie that's got a base. They're like, hell no, you can't go in that thing. And he did it anyway. And they were going, wow, what if we gave him a budget? What could he do with this? And they, the story, and you probably already know this, Jimmy, which is he was sworn to secrecy, of course, but then he made his big
2001.
Well, he did yeah, of course. It's 5 years. He did okay. What can you fake on film? So he made 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is absolutely gorgeous to this day. You play that thing on Blu-ray, it is freaking flawless. They release it in,
and if you
go ahead,
I was going to say, if you look at it, it's almost like the model for what they did with space, because that was before we allegedly went to space. right?
Yeah, it's true. The guy who directed Narnia, Andrew Adamson, right, was formerly an animator. He used to be doing animations. It's obvious that a lot of the fawns aren't real. They're from an animating director. I mean, obviously they can still travel through wardrobes. Obviously the sky vacuum's still true. But the director, Kubrick, let's talk about him.
Yeah, it was before we went to space, and he's doing these planets that the reality.
Before we went to a second law of thermodynamics violation. No, we've never been to a second law of thermodynamics violation. There isn't a second law of thermodynamics violation. Sky vacuum above our head.
The the cinematography of it was just breathtaking. Really is. You got to watch that movie.
And
again.
he releases.
Maybe
go ahead. He releases it in 68. Apollo 11, the Eagle was landed. It was in 1969, and subconsciously it filled in the gaps for a lot of people. But it turned out to be a nightmare because he ended up taking the movie. He did not make a lot of movies. He made The Shining in 1980, and then encoded his confession into The Shining, into the movie The Shining.
Yes.
And then
Explain that for anyone. First of all, it's one of my favorite movies. Explain what you're talking about, because I try to explain and I can't find it again.
Oh,
so
it's easy. You could. I'll show you.
And and for anyone questioning, I want to ask you this for all the listeners, anyone watching. If you're going, well, it's a movie and blah, blah, it's because he was a movie, then I'm going to ask you to watch two other movies.
Yeah, that's what we would do too. Yeah. I mean, if you don't believe the first Narnia movie, and it's embedded second level confessions in it about it not being real, then I've got 3 more Narnia movies that I can put in front of you.
Watch Argo. Okay. And
Alternatively, study the second law of thermodynamics and gas dispersion into volumes, because the area above our heads claimed to be a volume that gas could fill, in line with entropic law. I'd say that was much more useful than watching movies.
Watch Wag the Dog. We'll start you off real simple. Wag the Dog. I insist that you watch Wag the Dog, where basically, and you could.
Production. I had trouble to find it. So I watched Wag the Dog many years ago and didn't realise the implications of what it was suggesting. Now, I'm not suggesting it's a documentary, it's a movie. Nevertheless, it's an interesting concept about manipulation of media by government for narratives that the government themselves may or may not be aware of. The idea being that the people behind the scenes are pulling the strings to put together false narratives. It's just about propaganda. But it's very difficult to find, so when I came to buy it, I thought, I'll buy a Blu-ray of it. And there wasn't one. I thought, well, I'll buy the DVD of it. And there wasn't one. I just could not get it. So I ended up having to buy a second-hand copy on eBay.
Say it's a movie and you can believe it's a movie. It's
Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro.
It's way more than that. But it basically shows you how government knows how to create the greatest film. They can create.
It's a movie. A movie doesn't show you how government do anything.
Any story, any film.
Movie. And it
could be a front For some,
could be. Meanwhile, we've got gas law, second law of thermodynamics. These aren't ambiguous movies and suggestions of anything. They're set in stone laws of nature that defy a gas devoid area above our heads called a vacuum that you travel through to get to the moon.
something that you had, which is a billion times bigger than the beautiful shiny stars you're staring at.
We all got taught what propaganda was, as far as I was aware. I mean, I did have a private education, although I did spend some time in a normal school. When that particular private school closed down, I had to move to a normal school. And I remember being taught what propaganda was in that normal school. So based on that, it's very limited, but I would assume that it's part of the curriculum. And everybody gets taught what propaganda is, who Bernays is. Am I wrong? Did we not all get taught what propaganda was in high school?
Yes, and this is the type of video that my son will push right in my face and say, yeah, really, listen to this guy. Well done, Mark.
We have wag the dog. We create war.
Right.
We create murder. Let's get some of our children and we'll wind them up in the name of patriotism and nationalism, and we'll get a director to make it look like these people are suffering, and we need to save them in the name of freedom. So send our children to get slaughtered so some of these people can make some cash and do a land grab.
No, it's like even within the narrative that's come from an idea from a movie, there's still multiple items within a narrative. It's just a narrative, none of it validated, that he will accept.
No, I'm just saying it's a movie.
Selective reasoning.
It's a movie. And then when you get past that, go by Argo, which is something that I remember living through. So with that said,
then go look at the Miami Mall aliens.
Yeah, then look at that. Yeah. And by the way, there were in Wag the Dog, there were no plot holes. It was absolutely believable. Absolutely. How they laid out, how you build a war from a Hollywood standpoint was brilliant.
Yes,
absolutely brilliant.
It's brilliant.
And even at the haunting ending where Dustin Hoffman is like, it's like, hey, can I turn this into an actual movie, a fictional movie? And De Niro, the CIA guy's like, no, you can't. And you could tell that Hoffman was going to go through and the CIA were going to whack him. And it's like, yeah, that's how it would have gone down. Because it's like, you can't say no.
It's really,
so
you can't say, you don't have a choice. So
The Shining.
One Flew of the Cuckoo's Nest is, I'm sorry, The Shining is giving you clues. He confessed during certain areas. Go ahead.
So The Shining, which was a Stephen King book, and that's a wonderful floor pattern. By the way, hold on that shot if you can, because that's a great shot. The Shining, which was a Stephen King book, which was eventually taken over by Stanley Kubrick. He wrote the screenplay for it. And what he did was, in that movie, because he couldn't say anything, right, about his involvement with the Apollo program,
he was going to get whacked.
Yeah, he was going to get whacked. In fact, the black guy, and I can't remember the actor's name in the movie, who got hit in the chest with the axe, that was to symbolize the one friend that he told and that got clipped. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly who that was, which was, and the whole Room 237. Okay, so we did not know. Kubrick died in 1999. And the Blu-ray for The Shining came out some years later, like only a few years later. And there were people, nerds, super nerds, that were going through it frame by frame. And there was a guy that figured out the whole thing out. He's like, oh yeah, he goes, and he called it Room 237. That's the name of the documentary. You can look it up. Real easy to find out there. I mean, you can find it on Rumble and BitChute and Brighton and stuff like that.
I saw that.
So Room 237, brilliant. It was also known as the Moon Room, which was, the room number on the key was an anagram for moon room. And the premise was nothing in that room is real. It's all fake. It's all an illusion, which is interesting for a moon room. And it started out as a dream, the gorgeous girl in the bathtub that turned into like this zombie.
I've seen miles better analysis on The Shining than this. If you want to check out a Shining analysis, go and listen to Rob Ager. And he's talking about how it's a metaphor for abuse. That is to say that the hag in the bath is representative of him. It's his state of mind, because he's abusing his own kid in the movie. Now that's an undertone that most people don't pick up on. Anyway, Rob Ager does an absolutely exceptional breakdown of The Shining. He also undermines a lot of this crap about it having moon landing stuff in it. 237. I mean, if you just Google search what's the distance to the moon, it says 238,885. Is that round downable to 238? Maybe we can, if we fudge orbital motion in ellipses, we can say that at some point it's at 237. But the standard rhetoric isn't 237. So this is meaningless. Moon room says who? Who called it the moon room? Am I missing something? It's 237. Where's it called the moon room? Does it say that on it? Unless I missed something.
Turned into a nightmare, which was the project that Stanley Kubrick signed on for. I mean, come on. There isn't a director alive. It's like, hey, unlimited budget. You have 5 years to make the film. And he's like, yeah. I mean, he spent money on this thing. And what he did was he built little things into it to show people. I'm sorry, the 2001: Space Odyssey. But in The Shining, he built little things. So like his sweater, for example. And I can't remember.
Quick shout out to Chow Young Cat with the super chat. Thank you very much indeed. Says, we are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as through God we're making his appeal through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. Thank you for the super chat.
Into it to show people. I'm sorry, the 2001: Space Odyssey. But in The Shining, he built little things. So like his sweater, for example. And I can't remember does that say which Apollo is that?
Says 11.
Okay, perfect. So Apollo 11, which was interesting because this show was shot in real time, supposedly around 1980, right? But the kid was only a certain age. Right. When exactly did she make the sweater for him, right? Because the sweater predates the child. So, and he wears it perfectly in this certain age, not to mention, you know, the patterns on the floor are a complete mock-up of the NASA launch pads. The patterns on the floors they use everywhere. If you get a chance, watch it. It is an absolute. I don't want to break it down entirely because it takes too long. I mean, there's a whole documentary on this, but it is but you got to focus. The reason why they call room 237, 237,000 miles to the moon. That's roughly. And I know people say it's an elliptical orbit, and sometimes it's 237, sometimes it's not. But the general accepted distance is 237,000 miles to the moon. It's like, oh, okay. And that hotel didn't have a 237 when they were shooting. They had to make it all up to do it. But it is a fantastic confession of Stanley Kubrick. And now he backed out as far as the television aspect of it. So he did everything he could to try to research what could be.
Yeah, therefore moon landings faked by Kubrick. Okay.
Yep, you got me.
But even if they were, let's say we accept all of this. This is all true. Kubrick faked it. He made a deathbed confession in the form of a movie called The Shining. Okay, I accept all of it. Does that mean space isn't real? How does that conclude with space isn't real?
Does it?
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't in the slightest.
Be faked on film, but when they finally got down to the Apollo 11 thing, and you guys know this, you're in entertainment, they did something absolutely unheard of, which was they said, okay, the networks were like, okay, give us the feed so we can run this on our networks. And they said, no, sorry, you don't get the feed. It's like, what do you mean? No, you have to come down to NASA. We're going to put it on a big screen, and you're going to film it second generation. You're going to have to.
He's missed about out there. So what they actually had was, I'll add this bit because they didn't disclose this bit, but it's going to be a tape. So they play a tape, a recording, because it's obviously not live. No one's going through sky vacuums. So they play a tape onto a monitor, a CRT monitor. They then film the monitor with a video camera. They send that video signal to a projector that then projects the image of the moon landing onto the wall at NASA. That is what the press got to film.
Film our projection.
You get that?
And
AMD's gaming graphics business looks like it's in terminal decline.
Jim, you asked.
Let's get some of our children, and we'll want.
What do you mean? No, you have to come down to NASA. We're going to put it on a big screen, and you're going to film it second generation.
This historic moment, the greatest moment in humanity's history.
Right.
You can't get the actual like video feed. The news people, you can't get the actual video feed. You have to come here and just put your cameras on our
television
screen.
Yeah.
Again, this buys into their narrative, right? If you can explain why you've had to do it in that method, then you overcome the rebuttal. This is their rebuttal to the moon landing. You overcome it by saying, well, we had to do it that way because we had 25 people in the room who all wanted to film the same thing, and we're getting it through a monitor. How are we supposed to make the monitor bigger so that everybody can film it? There was no other way. If they say that, then that overcomes the problem, doesn't it? Suddenly there's a rebuttal to the rebuttal and everything ends in a neutral outcome. If you just say, there is no outer space, it doesn't matter what they say about how they got there, how they achieved the mission, the fakery in the form of the films, none of it matters. In your own mind, you can justify why that's had to occur if you know that there's no sky vacuum above your head. Everything else falls into place.
Yeah,
like a bootleg movie that you know when you go into a movie theater.
Perfect. That's a perfect example. It's a bootleg movie of the moon. Yeah, and
we're not. You can't see Metallica live,
right?
Unless you come in this room and we got the special live event.
Yeah, you're comparing it to a real band. Metallica are real, and you saying, well, if I show you a second-hand feed of Metallica, you're going to show that what they didn't really perform. No. Seeing a second-hand footage of Metallica doesn't disprove Metallica's existence. Yeah, it proves that they had to.
Proves their existence.
Well, no, because the comparison is Metallica or the moon landing in this example, right? Well, showing how fake the footage of the Metallica concert is doesn't disprove that there was a Metallica concert. Now, if they're saying the Metallica concert took place in front of 1,000 people live, and you don't get to see the 1,000 people, then fine. You're not proving that there was 1,000 people there. But by debunking the methodology of televising the Metallica concert doesn't disprove that there was a Metallica concert. By televising that there was a trip via a sky vacuum doesn't do anything. Pointing out that you can't have a sky vacuum to be in, to take footage from, is all you need. You instantly know why they'd have to fake it, why they'd have to employ Kubrick, if you believe they did. You now know why they'd have to do that, because they're not going to a sky vacuum. There isn't one.
You can see them on this TV. You can videotape them on this TV. You can't actually go to the concert.
And it was so great.
Who is this guy? Is he the channel owner? The guy with the glasses?
I know, he's annoying, though.
Really, Neil, I was about to compare him to you.
Now, how many people know that? How many people? I don't know that.
Not many. They just assumed that it was
going wow, just like Neil does, straight through the top of someone saying something.
Well, it's a transmission from the moon, so of course it's going to be crappy. And it upset the producers so much that it inspired a movie. There was a CBS affiliate, who was watching the transmission. He's going, "This is absolute crap." Right? He goes, "I could make a better moon movie than this. In fact, I could make a better Mars movie than this." And that's what was literally the inspiration for Capricorn 1 with O.J. Simpson, by the way, who just died, who just passed.
Yeah.
But that was one of his first serious roles, right?
O.J. Simpson died.
That means this is a new video. What shame, Mark?
Yeah, it is.
For shame.
It was just over a week ago. When did O.J. Simpson die?
Couple
weeks ago. A week or so ago. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, wasn't it?
Okay. It's another comparable non sequitur by the Kardashian lawyer or his lawyer team. If the glove doesn't fit, then you must acquit. Why? And then they show him, right, O.J. Simpson, wearing the gloves in court with another set of gloves underneath. And the story goes that he was told to stop taking his arthritis medication, but he still put the gloves on. You're like, how is it in any way related? If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. It's meaningless. It's a non sequitur. It's the same as suggesting that because there's Capricorn 1 film, because of the garbage transmission, there wasn't a moon landing. No, there wasn't a moon landing because you can't travel through a sky vacuum. That's the only standard you need to debunk this.
Right out of football was this. And so Capricorn was made, and Capricorn 1 was made, which was how the government faked a Mars mission, which again was brilliant. It was independent film. You could never get it made today, never in a million years. And the premise was that there was something wrong with the life support system, and they had to pull the astronauts, again, similar to the Scarlett Johansson movie that's coming up. They had to pull the astronauts and look, we're going to film this because you would have never made it to Mars and back. You were going to die. So we're going to film it. We're going to pass it off as real, and everything will be fine. All you have to do is go along with the script. And the whole premise of the movie was these astronauts, which have been absolute bunch of crap, because they're all Air Force officers. They didn't go along. They had a crisis of conscience. It's like, no, we can't lie to the American people. We should make a break for it. And then it's this big chase thing. The second half of the movie is the government chasing the astronauts and killing them one by one. And that was Capricorn 1. So go ahead.
Here's what everyone's big question is, which I question too.
Pound says this won't be a question we ask.
What are they hiding? Because if people don't know, you're not allowed in Antarctica. Why is
After a prolonged discussion about space, no one debunks space. Why would they lie immediately to Antarctica? Yeah, that's exactly what this is how this hors d'oeuvre has been prepared at the Feast of Nonsense. Identify moon landing anomalies, ask why they would lie, and then go to Antarctica. This is play by play how they would want this discussed. They being the powers that should not be. They being the people who still want us to have a sky vacuum. Ideal if you can argue about what the motivation for lying is. The whys and wherefores of the fakery, rather than debunking the entire region that they're claiming to be in.
that? That makes no sense. Well, why is that the only place in the entire world where every country has a bit and there's no issues there? Right. So that's a lot of people don't. And also in the encyclopedia, it talked about the firmament and flat Earth.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, then why did the globe come out after this big Antarctica treaty?
No.
Do you know?
No, so you can look in, I mean, you could go into Google and type in ancient cosmology and click on it.
And it will lie to you. It'll allude to the idea that we knew a couple of thousand years ago. In reality, the heliocentric system's been in existence for about 300 years, maybe 350.
Images, and you'll see just a wall of the same thing. Every freaking culture, and I don't care what the nerds say about the Greeks, screw the Greeks. Everybody drew the same thing, which was some sort of snow globe, because that's what it looked like, right? Stars curve over.
It's not screw the Greeks. It's do we have any primary source information for their claims of the Greek narrative? And the answer is no. It's not just screw the Greeks. It's do you have any evidence, primary source in nature, to validate these stories of ancient Greeks pretending to measure a globe when they're measuring a flat plane? Is that something that you actually have? Answer, no. Shout out to Theo Megawerty. This $5 is for 20 minutes of audio bliss of Neil not interrupting. No, you got Sunglasses Till Dawn interrupting, going nah, nah, down his mic. Just as good.
Over the sky, and so everybody drew basically a snow globe.
Thank you for the super chat. Neil's still here.
I'm going to start marking everybody.
About 500 years ago. Yeah, he's probably going to pull that up. Yeah, there you go. Everybody drew the same thing. It's not a coincidence that every culture drew the same thing.
Same exact
thing. Everybody thought that it was basically a snow globe. And
who cares? We refer to how ancients measured the world, how we came up with the ephemeris, how all of these origins start with flat Earth measurements. How they depicted it would be prefaced on how they measure it. That's what you should focus on. You know, the drawings, okay, fascinating that they all draw it as a snow globe. Who cares? The way you come to that inference is by measuring the world and navigating the world and dealing with the world in a practical way. Flat.
And then about 500 years ago, remember, back 500 years ago, most people couldn't read and write anyway. They introduced this globe model. Now, part of me thinks that the globe model was introduced by, of course, the authority, the powers that be. But even then, they weren't sure. But they weren't. One thing I've learned about people in power is they don't take chances, which is like, okay, let's roll this thing out. And it's easy. You know, again, you don't have to read or write to understand the globe. You can just show it to people. It's the only thing, by the way, we debunk to children. You know, we put it in the kindergarten classroom. We make a statement first week of class. It's like, we used to think it was flat, but now we think it's a globe. Put it in the
I like what Mark does in terms of laying down the progression story through your own life of how you became a globe believer is right on point. You know, I can't really fault Mark in this regard. His detailing of how you experience your progress through life as it being on a globe. He's very good at that.
You know, underneath a flag, and 12 years later, your brain is cooked.
Right.
So, but what happens is once the globe was introduced, they still didn't know for sure. And the premise, how we got into it was, again, the Antarctic Treaty, which was you didn't have the technology to figure it out until almost 1960. You're meaning you didn't until the internal combustion engine was built, until you had pressurized airplanes.
This is simply incorrect. They'd already measured it by this stage. So saying, well, we can't figure it out till we can go up to a sky vacuum. No, that's part of their narrative. We used to go out to space towards the horizon. Nobody in their right mind would ever dream that there was soil in the sky. Then NASA come along and create a narrative that there is soil in the sky. And then Mark comes along and says, we didn't really know if it was true until we had the technology to go up to the sky vacuum that doesn't exist, that they invented. What? No, we'd already been measuring it and mapping it flat for a significant period of time. Hi, Nathan. Praise the Lord. How's Neil doing? Says Chow Yun Cat from the Super Chat. He's marking your card if you're knocking him. Thanks for the Super Chat.
Planes, you didn't have the tech to figure out what this world was. I mean, you had...
No, they didn't have the tech according to NASA because NASA told you the tech you needed was sky tech. So that you weren't looking towards the horizon anymore. And you didn't have the sky tech, but they did.
Wooden ships, you had horses, you had trains. That's all you had.
And they were all utilizing a flat plane of reference to measure and build those systems and infrastructures. They were all dealt with and built on and measured flat.
Antarctica, it was worthless. So once, and that's exactly what we did. All the moves that our government was doing back in the 1950s kind of went along with that, which was we just researched. The Navy was out there constantly since the late 1920s. All the way until 1955, 56, Operation Deep Freeze, where I figured out it's like, oh yeah, that's when they pretty much had it locked down, and that's when everything changed. Was around 1960. In 1959, the Van Allen radiation belts were announced up above that said you can't do space travel because it's super deadly. That didn't age well. And then the Antarctic Treaty was put in, which says no corporation can set up shop in Antarctica forever. And if you know anything about treaties, we've broken every treaty. I mean, treaties were meant to be broken. Ask the American Indians. But anyway.
It'd be my point to ask anybody who is watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams to stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Let's pause my recording. Unfortunately, if you are watching live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Hit me up on Ko-Fi. I'm really poor. Smash that PayPal link and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley once again. Stay tuned if you're watching an after show. Massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels. And I will see you all in the next video.